Ethics and social work research is the very last chapter, and I'm actually not going to go into a lot of detail because a lot of what's covered here was covered in the IRB module, in the human subjects research training that you did online, and so most of these things should already be things that you've looked at, so you've already are familiar with the social work different values. I did give you another video here that might look at just kind of some of the philosophical underpinnings of it if you're interested in that. I do want to mention just, things like the fact that social work does overlap a lot with other professions that focus on social justice, and so the concept of ethics is just not just there because of the research part, but because of the fact that we are an ethics-driven profession. The protection of participants is basically what the whole process is about. There's a long history of how this developed. The Melmont Report is something you want to be familiar with just because it was kind of the fundamental report that came out that really influenced the three main things that we look at in all types of research. You do have to get your research approved before you do it because of these laws, and you have to follow certain steps. The most important of which is informed consent. It's absolutely the most important part of these research ethics. For children, it's called assent because they're not considered to be able to give consent. And there are certain different things that are required to be included in that. So most of the time when you'll have a form that participants sign that explains all of these things. It explains that it's voluntary. It explains how you're going to maintain people's privacy. Make sure you understand the difference between being anonymous and confidential. So you don't promise people this is anonymous when you really do know their name. That just means it's confidential if you know who they are, but you're not going to share it. And then most importantly, diversity and cultural sensitivity is something that really gets overlooked quite a bit when we're talking about this. And so this factors in not just in the research question, but in the whole way it's carried out. So here's an example of a video that talks about diversity and cancer disparities. I follow a perspective called cultural humility, which looks at things like the strengths of groups, how you partner with stakeholders, how you make sure that the measures you use are culturally competent, lots of different things that factor into this. And so we'll talk about this. There's actually a video that I would recommend that looks at this in action when it comes to that participatory action research approach of partnering with community. So you may want to check that out as well. And then just, again, IRBs is the term you're going to use all the time in any kind of academic research. It's a group within the university that has to approve research, and so you're going to want to be familiar with the fact that there is a website that has a lot of information, and most researchers tend to rely pretty heavily on this when they're conducting their research. This is where you went to do the training, there are different results that they can come back with, and so depending on how many risks there are to people, that is going to influence basically how quickly they review things. So the last few things that I have here is just some of the major experiments that created some big ethical issues that kind of led to where we are today and why we have so many rules around research. So the Stanford Prison Experiment is one that just came out into a full-blown movie with some big name actors, so you may want to check out the trailer. The Stanley Milgram Experiments is another one, so there's another video about that. And the Guatemalan syphilis experiments in Tuskegee. So those are somewhere you may want to look at. Most people are familiar with Tuskegee, not as much with the Guatemalan side of it. So that is basically it for this presentation.